don't believe it's the end of the world. I don't believe it's the end of mankind.
February 14th. A day that will forever haunt me. Although I didn't commit the atrocities on that night, my body did. To understand how I ended up here, you must know what happened. It begins February 6th. It was a cold night after work. I had just finished a grueling 10-hour shift at the office. I was supposed to be home at 4:30 to take my fiancée out to a restaurant, but my bastard boss told me I was missing a few hours, so I had to fill them in. By the time I finished them, it was already 9 o'clock. My fiancée would be pissed when I got home. I hopped in my car and began to drive home. The road from the town to my house is dark and usually empty by this time of night. Lots of wooded areas. As I was driving, I saw this light. Now, I thought it was just an oncoming car, but as I got closer, it got brighter and bigger. It was just floating there, about a foot above the road. There was something so odd and alluring about it. I walked closer to examine it when I saw everything. I saw the heavens and hell, massive pillars and structures bound by flesh and blood. I saw the end and the beginning, all that there is and all that isn't. I could feel my eyes and brain strain to contain the knowledge. Everything grew more intense until nothing but white engulfed me. I woke up in the hospital with my fiancée by my side. The doctor came in and explained that a trucker saw my car and my body on the road. The trucker claimed that blood was pouring from my mouth and eyes, and that I was shaking violently on the road. I couldn't remember what happened last night. All I knew is that I saw something. I went to explain to the doctor what I saw, but then I felt the brain-splitting pain strike my head. Loud, thunderous rings drowned out the entire world. My vision became blurry, and I passed out again and woke up in the machine. The doctor explained that I was inside of an MRI machine and that they were going to be doing scans on my brain. After they pulled me out, they showed me the scans. What I saw terrified me. Faces of the damned, swarming all around my head. While I could see them, the doctor and fiancé couldn't. I asked if they could see the faces, and they looked at me as if I was crazy. The doctor pointed out that there seems to be no abnormalities in my brain, but I still could be having trauma from my accident. Usually I would agree with him. I could still be having trauma from my accident. I could have just chalked it up to everything I saw just to be a hallucination, but I know what I saw. Everything felt so real. And when I close my eyes, I can still see it. The ride back home didn't help my head at all. Although I loved my fiancée, she kept questioning me. She asked if I was on drugs, if I was having an affair with her, if I was hiding things from her, if I had mental issues that I tried to hide from her. The more she kept poking and prying, the more irritated I got. Usually I would love the fact that my fiancée was so concerned about me, but I kept finding her so goddamn annoying. My vision was getting blurry, and then I heard something in my head.
Kill her.
I thought maybe my mind was just messing with me, but then I heard it again, clear as day.
Kill her. Do it. Kill her now. Do it now.
I rubbed and shook my head, trying to make those words disappear. And when we got home, my fiancée immediately stormed out of the car and into the house. I guess she was mad that I didn't want to answer her stupid questions. When she slammed the door, I heard that voice again.
Do it. You know you want to.
The voice was deep and commanding. I began to think I was going insane until I felt a wave of sudden relaxation and pleasure all over me. The voice called out again, and this time there were other voices too. They began to overlap and beckon me to do it, to kill her. And the more I heard, the more I listened, and the more I liked the idea. My vision started to shake and become grainy. Suddenly I realized I was walking up to the door of the house, trying to get in. I didn't remember moving my body. It was almost as if something had taken over. As my body moved into the house, I was merely a bystander from within. I was put in the back seat as I watched helplessly as my voice called out for my fiancée. Before I could see what would happen, darkness consumed me. I was left in a void with no end, nothing to see or do. After what felt like an eternity, I woke up. I was in my bed, thinking that everything was just a nightmare. But when I got up, my foot slipped onto the floor, and I came crashing down onto it. There is when I realized it wasn't a dream. No, it was reality. The floor and walls were coated in blood and flesh. And there lying before me was the mangled corpse of my fiancée, skinned and brutalized and torn apart. My heart twisted and contorted at the sight of her. My mind immediately started to race, thinking what to do now. How do I explain this to the cops, my friends, my family, her family? Everything was so overwhelming until I heard a faint laughter in my head. And then it grew louder, and louder, and louder, and it was almost maniacal. All I could hear was laughter until everything went quiet. And in the horrible quiet, I heard the voice say,
"Feast.
I fell to my knees, unable to move.
Feast upon the flesh."
My body complied with this notion. I began to dig into her, feasting on the meat and muscle tissues that were still intact. And after consuming the body, I could feel my flesh boil, and my bones began to morph and twist. My very being felt like it was being ripped out from inside. I could feel change, my consciousness become one with the voice, and I craved more flesh. I needed the flesh. I wanted the flesh. This time I could see everything. Although I was merely a passenger in what was my own body and mind, I could still see. I think the worst part about it was that I couldn't care. I couldn't bring myself to care or even fight it. I accepted it, almost like some primordial part of me wanted this and enjoyed it. I ran all over the woods, searching for flesh. Small animals wouldn't do. Human flesh would be the only thing that could quench my hunger. The more we went without, the more I could feel the pain of hunger. It slithered around our bodies, straining us, killing us. Without flesh, we would surely die. This would have been the case until them. A group of cars stuck on the road after a tall tree had fallen onto it. We watched from a distance as the people who were on the road try to move the tree. Needless to say, it was almost like watching a fat kid go crazy at a fucking buffet. The sweet, tantalizing, juicy taste of the flesh and meat. Nothing could ever compare. And by the time we finished, I felt my body change again. I could feel control return to my body and my brain. And when I could move and think for myself, that's when I was drowning in remorse and guilt. The cold, terrifying truth of what I had done wrapped around me. The police arrived and found me sitting in the road, covered in blood and ligaments. And they hauled me away. And that's how I ended up here.
Well, Mr. Ramirez, that sure does sound like one hell of a story. The only thing is, none of that is true.
What? You don't believe me? There's proof! There's fucking evidence! Even the goddamn police said it was impossible for one man to do all of that!
Nearly impossible, Mr. Ramirez. Now, as your lawyer, I suggest we make this story actually truthful, and not a load of fairy tale shit. Well, our time is up, Mr. Ramirez. Same time next week?
Leave me. You are of no use to me.
Very well, then.
My flesh is melting.